Hey, true believers. Chris Mack coming at you with Detective Comics 565. And this was an interesting issue. It was more of a build-up issue, but the way that they kind of build up the killer is really what made this book. The print date on it was August 1986, and it just starts out intense. You know, you start out thinking this is going to be just a normal, calm evening. You see a lady, flight jacket here, which I'm glad they put that in the foreground, which really helps with what this person, kind of what their profession is. And the way that Doug Mowick, I cannot pronounce his name correctly. I don't know if it's Moch or Monick. Let me know down in the comments if I'm pronouncing it wrong. But he's saying there's love in the universe. This we know. What we do not know is the amount. Consider, is it possible that the amount of love in the universe is finite and therefore limited? If so, is there ever enough to go around? And when a new love is born, must an old one die? And just as, you know, we're getting that third person narration, we see the silhouette, we see these cryptic eyes, and then we see this axe explode through the door. And we see that this masked person is a jealous lover from the past. You know, he's saying that this woman has multiple lovers. This is one that she turned away some time back. Hoists the axe over his head. He goes, and it just, I hate your lying face. What does that leave me? Don't worry, you won't see me ever again. And he takes off. Make sure to reference that red flight attendant jacket that we saw at the beginning. See these cryptic eyes again. And like I said, just the way that opens the book, bam, you are invested. One thing about these older Batman detective comics in particular, so I always remember Batman being more action and Detective Comics actually being more sleuthing. And that's kind of what we get here. And then, of course, we open up on our hero. And before we get into this, let's talk about who made this book. This is, as I said, Doug Mowick, I think is how you say it, the writer. Gene Colan and Bob Smith, artists. John Costanza doing the inking, or lettering, I'm sorry. Adrienne Roy doing the coloring. And then Len Wein was the editor. And for a second before I looked at the credits, I was sitting here looking at Bullock, and I could have said, is this an early McFarlane? Because this looks much like the cops from Spawn, Twitch, and can't remember the other guy's name, but it looks very much like him. I mean, Bullock just looks ridiculously overweight and whatnot, and kind of clownish, but nonetheless, we all know Harvey's kind of a jerk, but he's still always one of my favorite characters. Now, while we have this main murder mystery going on, we also are focusing heavily on the relationship with Catwoman and Batman. She's given him the cold shoulder, and he doesn't understand why. Now, there's kind of a flip to what happens in the story. I don't want to give that away. But Catwoman is invested in this, and we don't really know why. And they kind of find something that might be the killer. And she goes, well, without Roy Boy's last name, not much we can do till tomorrow. So I'll be on my way, Batman. So eager to leave me alone, Catwoman? You've always got Robin. He goes, no, Selena, I don't. And at this point, this is pre-Crisis, the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. So Jason Todd's backstory is a little twisted. Actually, I think this is post-Crisis. I'm sorry, I get a little confused because pre-Crisis, Jason Todd had blonde hair and was actually part of Haley's circus like Dick Grayson. So he has black hair, so he has post-Crisis. Comics. But you see that he has a relationship with this girl named Rena, and I like is how it shows that their relationship's flourishing. It shows Batman in the cave alone. He says the strange stalagmite has changed little in the last few months, still vaguely resembling a cat. But tonight, well, somehow it seems colder. So this issue, even though they're trying to, the sleuthing of trying to find this murderer, I like that the pacing, like the whole overarching really focuses on love. And that comes up several times in this issue. And one thing that feels a little bit out of character is how Batman pines for Catwoman. He says, right, so do you want to follow him home from work, or should I talk about the suspect that they have in mind? And he goes, why can't we both do it? Waste of manpower or woman power. But if you insist. So you're just kind of like, wow, she's being a real jerk in a sense. And he's like, what's happened to us? Nothing. Everything. And so she eventually tells him, she says, well, maybe it's because our love linked up on the fall of Nocturna. If you don't know who Nocturna is, she was an interesting character that initially took custody of Jason Todd, and Batman had a thing for her. And that was a whole convoluted story, but Nocturna is one of my favorite very old characters. I kind of wish they'd bring her back into the new books. But while that's happening, we start to see that the flight attendant jacket's getting burned. Again, we see these dark, harrowing eyes in the darkness. And while it seems like everyone's flourishing, I like how every time Batman's out patrolling, you just kind of get that very big sense of aloneness. While we see Jason Todd flourishing, we see Catwoman kind of coming into her own. And from that point, it's just a very tragic story because Batman wants to open up to her, which we're not really used to him following in that regard. But the way it's written, it's very thoughtful, very provoking, especially since the whole overarching sense of this book is about love. And while this is happening, we see this face. He goes, you lied to me, Mona. You said you loved me. And you wonder why I hate your face. Now we'll see how he likes it. And you're just like, oh my God, that is intense to see the woman from the beginning of the book kind of have that shrunken voodoo head. And you're left on a cliffhanger. You don't get any more until they tell you to read Batman 399, which I'm trying to hunt down. I'm hoping that one of my local comic shops has it. And there's a backup story with Green Arrow. I didn't really pay attention to it because I was more invested in the main story, but the artwork I wanted to show here was just absolutely phenomenal, the dynamicness of the panels. So just wanted to share that, and if you guys have this issue, give it a read. It's worth it. But yeah, Detective Comics 565. There's not a whole lot of action like we see in a lot of the modern books, but it focuses more, it's like a human interest story in that regard, where, there's like, well, how much love is there in the world? When the new love's born, must an old love die? And it's just a very interesting, poignant thought, and I like that from a writing point of view. So if y'all enjoy a good story and not just want to chase the next one of 100th variant cover or just stuff like that, or the next big number one or la 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 la, and you just want a really thought-provoking detective story, I highly suggest 565. If you've enjoyed what you've seen, please first and foremost support your local comic shop and pick up a copy. If you've enjoyed this review, please first and foremost, if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little bat bell next to subscribe. That way, as we continue to upload content, we really would appreciate it. That way, you guys get notified. You come to the channel, and we love talking with y'all and hearing about your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope y'all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.